What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode. So today we're going to do a quick update and show you guys what kind of rattlesnakes we have here at Primitive Predators. All right, so first up, guys, are some Venezuelan species of rattlesnakes. Now these guys are absolutely beautiful. To my right, what I have here is a Urico rattlesnakes, their common name, but the scientific name for these guys is Crotalus durissus pifinorum. And then on the left is a Uricone rattlesnake, which this is Crotalus durissus virgandis or virgandis. Now, as you can see, they're both very similarly patterned. However, the color is pretty drastically different between the two of them. So this one, the pifinorum, this is actually a blue phase pifinorum, so it's much lighter than typical. These guys will actually be a little darker when you see their like wild type coloration. But she is gorgeous compared to like the more brownish, and this is more of a white Uricone as well, so that's a pretty one. Also, size difference. This female to my right, the pifinorum, is about a year old. However, the Uricone is about 6 months old, but they're about the same size, and that's because the Uricone is a much bigger species of rattlesnake. Those guys, I mean, you're looking at like four footers, pretty standard, maybe 5. Whereas the piffinorums, you're looking 3 to 4 foot. They're just a smaller species of rattlesnake. But as you can see, this girl is getting completely colored up, and she's starting to look way more bluish white. And she's just gonna get better looking with age. That's the beautiful thing about this color of the pifinorum, is they just continue to look better and better. I don't know if you can get a look at her head close up. Almost looks like cookies and cream. These guys are absolutely stunning. And as you can see, both of these rattlesnakes, very mellow. As long as they're treated with respect like this, neither one of them are even rattling. They're just checking things out. But how about I put this one back and we'll take a look at another species of rattlesnake that we have here at Primitive Predators. Next up, what we have is a Northern Pacific rattlesnake. This is Crotalus oregonus, and she is not used to being handled at all. She's a little bit more feisty than a lot of my other snakes. And we'll get her over here. So this one actually came from where I'm from. So this came from Northern California, Sonoma County. In particular is where this exact animal's from. And the reason I kept her is I actually got a few different babies from last year. But if you look at her eyes, she actually has two yellow eyes, which isn't typical with the species. They typically have like brown eyes. So I decided to keep her just because she had a unique face. But these guys get in anywhere from like 3 to 5 foot would be a giant one, but 3 to 4 is about average for these guys. Males being slightly smaller than the females. And you'll find these guys all the way from, I think they have some overlap with Southern Pacifics in Central California. And they'll go their northern ranges, I believe, into Washington, maybe even bordering into British Columbia. These guys are a very cold tolerant species, which basically means, unlike here in Florida where it doesn't get really below 60 degrees, these guys will actually hibernate, and they are found in localities or in places where it even snows during the winter. So they are an extremely cold tolerant species of rattlesnake. So these two are actually my favorite pair of rattlesnakes that I have. These guys just have my heart. These were the first exotic venomous snakes I actually got under my permit when I moved here to Florida. And these are South American rattlesnakes. This is Crotalus durissus cumanensis. On my right, the one I've got the tail in my hand, this is the male. And then to the left, with a solid stripe, that is the female. Now these guys have been grown like weeds in the, I would say, coming up on 1.5 years of having them. And they are getting huge. When I first got them, they were about the same size as that Northern Pacific rattlesnake I showed you. And obviously you can see 1.5 years later, or maybe a year later, how big they have gotten. And for being quote unquote normal morphs of a snake, or normal colorations of a snake, these guys are just absolutely beautiful. I've even seen some of them that have come in that have been hypo, because I think that's the only other morph these guys come in, or a color mutation. But I have to say, these guys just take the cake. Now these are native to South America, like I mentioned. They are interesting for a rattlesnake species because when you get down to South America, the venom changes. These guys are extremely toxic venomous snakes. However, they aren't the hemotoxic venom or hemotoxic strong venom like we think of with North American rattlesnake species. These guys are actually extremely neurotoxic. The difference between hemotoxic and neurotoxic venom, just so if you guys don't know, is hemotoxic venom affects your bloodstream or your blood cells and tissue. So that causes a lot of necrosis, which is dead tissue. And you tend to lose digits if you get bit. As opposed to neurotoxic venom, which is exactly what it sounds like, neurotoxic. So what that does is it affects your central nervous system. So it shuts down your lungs, your ability to move your body, ability to breathe. And typically what you do for a neurotoxic venom is how you die from that is you typically will suffocate because your lungs will shut down and you won't be able to breathe. So these guys are extremely neurotoxic, which is really interesting, like I said, for a rattlesnake species. And these guys in particular have some really keeled scales. It's very similar to Bushmasters because they come from a very similar range as well. All right, so next up is my big male Western Diamondback rattlesnake. This is Crotalus atrox. Now this is actually the second largest species of rattlesnake here in the United States, right behind the Eastern Diamondback. Now the Western Diamondback, they've got the capability of getting about 6 feet long, with reports of them a little longer than that. But typically what you're seeing them at is like, he's probably pushing 5.5, I'd say 5.5 foot, honestly, is what he's pushing. Now these guys are actually responsible for the most snake bites here in the United States, is the Western Diamondback behind that, which leads with a heavy body count. These guys are extremely hemotoxic. The only rattlesnake larger than this in the United States is the Eastern Diamondback, which has the capability of getting 8 feet long, and honestly twice as thick as he is. Now he is about 8 years old. As far as Western Diamondback rattlesnakes go, he's by far he is the most mellow one I've ever had, and by far one of the most mellow Western Diamondbacks. I've had about 30 of these, give or take, maybe 35. And he's by far the best behaved out of all those. I've had some that would springboard out of their enclosures and would be constantly rattling if I had him out like this and striking. He's honestly only ever struck once, and that was during, my friend was doing a photo shoot of him, and we just had to keep him in a certain spot, and he was not liking the fact that we were keeping him from going where he wanted to go. So he did end up striking and biting the snake hook, and that little bite put out a lot of venom. These guys, because they're one of the larger venomous species, and one of the larger rattlesnakes, if you look at their head there, their head is huge, which translates pretty well to having gigantic venom loads. I mean, a bite from one of these guys, if he injected you with venom, would be extremely bad, extremely hemotoxic. These guys are finger rotters, so typically, if you get bit in the hand or in the finger, you have a good chance of losing it. Although this guy is, like I said, a very well-behaved rattlesnake, I am very cautious with this one just because of the species. These guys are kind of like the Cuban crocodile of the rattlesnake world. They're just very twitchy, very fast, very nervous snakes, and extremely agile. So I'm watching his body language now. He's huffing and puffing a little bit. Right now he's all in exploratory mode. So he's just wanting to check things out. He's not really too concerned with me. He also doesn't see me too much of a threat because, as you can see, he's not rattling. He's just chilling. But he is breathing a little heavy, which means that he has some level of concern. Now these guys you'll find all throughout the southwest of the United States, from California all the way over to Texas. They have a very large range. Like I said, average size of these guys is probably 3 to 5 foot, with large males being 6 foot. I've even seen a 6-footer that was about probably 20 to 25 pounds. His name was Rambo. He was gigantic. And these guys are also kind of like the ball pythons of the venomous world when it comes to vipers. So they come in a crazy array of different colors and mutations, all the way from albinos, normals, to black ones, which are melanistics, even scaleless ones now. And then with the other venomous ball python being the monocle cobra, coming in tons of different colors. But for vipers, these guys definitely have quite the array of color. Now the beautiful thing about our outdoor area here at Permanent Predators is we're able to take this guy outside, let him cruise around. He's not gonna be able to get out of here. This is an escape-proof room. He's gonna be able to just explore, do what he wants, stretch out. I mean, we keep him in a 6-foot cage, but this room out here is 20 by 20, so it's much bigger. He's able to actually stretch around, cruise around, get some natural sunlight. It's amazing to be able to watch these animals just interact outside. Now, if you saw that, he just twitched. That was literally me just moving my hand up and down. So as you can see, they are very responsive snakes. Definitely one I would say is very easy to get, but I would recommend for more advanced keepers. I wouldn't recommend a Western Diamondback for your first rattlesnake species. They're just, I mean, there's no venomous snakes with training wheels. These guys are at the apex of the rattlesnake world as far as keeping. Just because they are, like I said, twitchier and more inclined to fight and give you crazy venom loads. Now we're gonna let him hang out outside a little bit, get a little bit of exercise, and then we'll come back here in a second and show you another species of rattlesnake we have here at Primitive Predators. So lastly, what I have here are a pair of Southern Pacific rattlesnakes. These guys are native to central Southern California, and I believe into Arizona as well, a little bit. This is Crotalus oregonus helleri, the Southern Pacific. Closest to you guys, that's the female. She's obviously albino. And then behind her is the male, which is a het albino, which basically means that he looks normal, like a normal coloration, but carries the genes for albinism. Since albinism is a simple recessive trait, that's how that kind of works. So when these guys breed together, half the babies should come out albino, the other half will come out normal in phenotype, normal in appearance, and then carrying the genes for albinism. Now, these are both really mellow snakes, but as you can tell from their body language, they're not too happy to be outside right now. For some reason, they're flattening out their head and pointing their nose down. That's pretty much a sign that they're not happy. So we're not gonna keep them out too long, but I don't know what it is. I mean, these guys, like I said, they aren't rattling. They normally never strike. They're pretty easy to handle, but as soon as they came outside right now, they just instantly got put into a bad mood. But this is about adult size for these guys. You could see some that get up to about 4 foot. These are probably, the female is, I would say 3 foot, male's about 3.5 foot. They'll probably get a little bigger, but they are a smaller species of rattlesnake. All right, guys, I hope you really enjoyed today's episode, seeing some of the awesome rattlesnakes we have here at Primitive Predators. One thing we have going on is tomorrow, Saturday, June 26th, is Crocfest. And it's basically a fundraiser at Zoo Tampa for the Indian gharial. So if you're in the Tampa area or in Western Florida, come check us out. I think tickets are, probably by the time you're watching this, pretty close to being sold out, but they will be sold at the gate. So if you can't buy them online, you can still, from what I'm hearing, buy them when you get there. But come check us out, say hi. But in the meantime, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Follow us on Instagram at Primitive Predators. Also follow us on Patreon at Primitive Predators as well. I'll put all the links in the description below, and we'll see you on the next video.